I think most of you who have been sticking around with this channel for a little while now understand that this channel is built on, and I want it to be built on, my introduction back into some of the best DC comics, DC movies, and some of the characters that I loved growing up. I strayed away from it a long time ago, and it wasn't massively part of my childhood, at least not like immensely. I definitely was into some other things, and I strayed away from stuff like The Flash, Batman, and stuff like that. So I decided that I would watch one of the most highly touted movies that I've heard of, and that was Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. I absolutely loved, and I mean loved, the regular Flashpoint from the CW show, and that's kind of like a casual thing to say, but I really did love the idea of a Flashpoint paradox. The idea that he goes back in time and saves his mother and all of these terrible, horrible things happen. I think it's a crazy and also an amazing writing and plot point that people utilize extremely well. Now, with the Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, they did this in such an amazing way. And I honestly believe that Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox was a masterpiece, and still is a masterpiece. Now, I will say the animation is a little bit lackluster, but I think there's a multitude of reasons for that. But I'm not really worried about how the animation looks, but more of like what substance we are given through this new universe. Now, the movie starts with something that I really enjoyed, and that was a scene with young Barry and his mother. They're having car troubles, and people continue to race on by, ignoring them. Barry actually chases after a car, saying that you're supposed to stop for people who are in need. And this just immensely connects to him being the future Flash, and obviously becoming the superhero he would eventually become. His mother, though, would then give him some extremely good advice while grabbing him by the shirt and stopping him from chasing the car. She would tell him, or actually tell him advice that she was told by her grandmother. She calls it a prayer of some sorts, but in my degree, it's more of a phrase to kind of live by and less of a prayer. But it's to accept things you cannot change, have the courage to change things that you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference. Now, this is a beautiful and amazing thing, especially for Barry himself, because Barry does have the power of a god. He has the power of speed, time travel, and so on. Yes, in this movie, he doesn't know necessarily how to utilize it, quote unquote. And we'll get to that in a little bit, because I do like the way they approached that aspect of time travel. But still, we do hear this quote, and it feels very close to home, because at the end of the day, this is something that Barry's going to have to deal with his entire life. Because we then skip to Barry entering his home on his mother's birthday to unfortunately see her passed away or dead on the ground. The true beginning of the Barry Allen story, or the tragic origins of the Flash. This is when we do skip massively forward. We would then see Barry, who would be at the grave of his mother as an adult. He's also with Iris, who is his wife, or to a large extent his loved one, and this is where you see him truly be the Flash. Now, a large part of him at this gravesite might bother some people, because this has been used quite a bit in a lot of the hero movies that I've seen, or superhero movies, talking about how he could have done something if he was actually there. Now, we all know that he was just a child, that a child would not have been able to save his mother, especially from muggers who are grown adults. There's no way he would have been able to help her, and he probably would have just died alongside her, unfortunately. And it's kind of the same thing with Bruce Wayne, being that of the Batman. He was unable to do anything. I mean, of course, his situation's a little bit different, because in a lot of worlds, or in a lot of timelines, he actually is the one that wants to go down Crime Alley. But he still wasn't able to actually save his parents. There was no world where a mugger would lose to a child and somehow his parents would live. But at the end of the day, we do deal with massive survivor's guilt, and that's what Barry is dealing with, even to this very day. He's an adult, he is a grown man, he has a wife, and he's also a renowned superhero, and the thing he is thinking about at the grave of his mother is that he should have done something. Survivor's guilt is a heavy thing, and at the end of the day, even if from the outside looking in, we see that it would have been impossible for him to do anything, to him, he believes he truly could have done something. And it's extremely sad, and frankly, that's probably an understatement, me saying that. But like I said before briefly, this is the first time we see him as the Flash. He races off to the Flash Museum to stop his rogues, but after being captured, he learns that the Reverse Flash is behind this entire attack and actually has another layer to the attack that the rogues were basically unaware of. This is where we actually see Thawne, or who would be mostly known as the Reverse Flash, but in this reality, and most, I know this is just an alternate name, he is Professor Zoom. Now, we do see a lot of different things, and it's kind of a little bit of a cram of all of the people that we know and love, but at the same time, it is a quick overview, because this version of the world we're living in right now isn't the one we really want to talk about. We do see many of the Justice Leaguers, or people like Wonder Woman, like Batman, like Superman, Green Lantern, and so on, and as we go, there's more and more, actually swoop down and come to help in the aid of Barry. Barry has a team now, has a family, has a great life, but there's one thing that's missing for him, and that's his mother. At the end of the day, he's missing his parents. And on top of that, it doesn't help that once everybody is captured, everything is safe, and everybody is good to go, he hears something from Thawne. From the person that he hates the most, from the person that his whole goal is to make his life hell. Well, he leaves him with one last message. That he could have all of these little petty victories, but he will never, never be able to save those who actually matter. And this is where we transition into the Flash running headfirst, immediately telling Batman that he's going to just run it off. But soon he would wake up at his desk and he would see the rogues actually on the screen. And it's an odd feeling because it seems as if the person next to him speaking to him doesn't actually understand what he's talking about. Who's the rogues and what's going on, and even so far as not knowing who the Flash actually is. Barry would think to himself that he needs to go and stop the rogues as he starts running out, and he begins to realize that he doesn't see his Flash ring. And this is immediately the first sign that things are definitely different, or something is going on, or something is at play. And this is where things kind of change massively. He falls down a staircase and eventually sees his mother. Yes, his mother. And this actually just trips Barry out. I mean, at the end of the day, this is his mother, but his mother has been dead for a long time, and he realizes that everything has changed. The world around him is so different, and slight hints or hint drops about this world is given about a war and all of these other things. I mean, Barry's mom even calls Batman a hero. Definitely something that is odd. Now, from the beginning of this, I did say that I believe that this this movie was a masterpiece. And some of you may be thinking, well, you were kind of just recapping some of the beginnings. I felt like it was needed to recap some of this the very beginning of the story, because there's a lot that happens actually in the later half of this movie, and all of the stuff that happens in the actual Flashpoint paradox. I mean, for starters, we get a Batman that is absolutely amazing. I mean, we immediately get a scene of Batman taking on someone by the name of Yo-Yo, this world's Harley Quinn. And this Batman, I mean, will have one of a massive, massive twist, as one that maybe a hardcore fan would obviously understand or know what or already know was coming, but a Batman twist that is absolutely amazing. But even before that, this version of Batman is obviously not your normal Bruce Wayne. I mean, he's obviously willing to kill, being that he straight up throws Yo-Yo off a building. But with a conversation with Cyborg, some massive hints get dropped that are kind of off-putting. And that's basically that Atlantis is taking over, and so is Wonder Woman and Themyscira. Batman even says that the war that they're fighting, the one that Cyborg wants him to participate in, has already been lost. And that is the truth, because everybody loses in war. And that's what Batman is trying to get across, that it doesn't matter if he actually helps them, and he doesn't even see it as a good thing for him to do, and something that would actually impact this world. And I'm gonna come back to that idea, because that will come back up very, very soon in this movie. And it's something that is extremely important in my eyes, and a beautiful plot point that this version of Batman truly sets up. Now, Barry would eventually find Batman. I mean, he would find the Batcave and so on, and he would keep calling him Bruce. I mean, thinking that he is Bruce Wayne, but then one of the major twists happened that he is actually Thomas Wayne, that Bruce Wayne is dead. Batman would then torture Barry, but when he tries to use his ring to show him that he is a superhero of some sorts, the Reverse Flash's clothes would show up. And let's just say, things begin to change massively, because Thomas Wayne would then ask if his son was alive in this other reality, and of course Barry says yes, showing how much a father would be willing to sacrifice for his son very soon, because he is completely and utterly into the idea of getting rid of this other speedster that has somehow shown up, and give Barry the chance to run and change the timeline, erasing them from existence, but hopefully, and well, fingers crossed, allowing his son to live. It's definitely something that most, if not all, fathers should strive to do, because, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what a father is supposed to be. I mean, a lot of people will say that your father should kind of be willing to sacrifice anything for their children or their family in general. Now, I know that's not necessarily true for every single family and every single father, but Thomas Wayne is able to portray that beautifully. There is no fear of being erased. This world he lives in, he doesn't even care about necessarily, and wants it to all be over. I mean, it's not like he's necessarily suicidal, but the idea that someone has come here, told him that there's a reality that his own son is still alive, even if he's not alive, he couldn't be happier with that idea. That's something that he would want for his son to be alive, and him not be alive, being willing to sacrifice himself so his son can actually live life. Now, this would lead them into trying to create the experiment that Barry, the Flash, or that made him the Flash in the very first place. But initially, it just straight up doesn't work. And currently, the war is truly picking up, because it seems like the land dwellers, or who would be us in this situation, are no longer going to stall for time, and it's truly now time for war. And it's kind of a sad thing, because even if you go back to the beginning of when he first meets his mom once again, his mother even says that, well, it is a wartime, and references that they're in wartime, but doesn't even kind of makes it seem as if it's not that big of a deal. Of course, we know war is a big deal, but to be that casual about this idea of war between Atlantis and Themyscira, and also the land dwellers in general, is kind of a scary thing, especially because we all know that there is some massive consequences to everything that is currently happening, and there is calamity coming, like heavily. Now, it is a little scary that a normal human is just flat out saying, oh yeah, you know, it is war and war's happening and stuff like that. But still, it's just flat out kind of something that is very, very scary how messed up this world truly got. Now, eventually Barry would go through the experiment once again, and his speed would come back. But a reality check would go through his brain once he tries to actually sprint, run, and break the barrier of time. Because he would realize that there's another speedster here, and that his chances of changing reality are 0 with that speedster here. And this is where things get very, very sketchy. We know that the Flash is unwilling to kill. I mean, he's not going to kill. And we also know that Eobard Thawne, or Professor Zoom, being that of the Reverse Flash, is basically sapping 50% of the Speed Force from Barry. And being with that said, Thawne would have to die for reality to change. And it feels, at least to a large extent, that all is lost, at least in the eyes of Batman. I mean, Thomas Wayne would feel partially like, well, they can't do anything because they don't know another speedster. They don't know where or even who this speedster even is. But soon that would be off the table, because when they would be trying to find this alien Superman, well, they would realize, or they would get info about where that speedster was. Because people, or Cyborg, would even reference that he's happy that Batman is willing to help with this war, but Batman even admits that he doesn't believe this war can even be ended, but does believe that his son could live again if this world is reset. And he got information that he has seen, or there has been sightings of a speedster in Themyscira, leading to the final climax of Barry versus Thawne. Now, this would lead into the literal final battle. This is where Barry and Thawne would face down once again, and Thawne would make it very clear that this was not his doing, which is kind of a scary thing. Because in the very beginning, if you don't know anything about Flash or Flashpoint and the paradox or anything like that, you would think Barry somehow woke up in a different world that was tampered by a speedster. But what he didn't realize is that this timeline was all his doing. All of it was the doing, or his doing, out of grief and the taunting words of Thawne about his, well, mother. His mother, her death, all of the grief that was stored within him still hold true to this very day. And eventually, that led him to create the Flashpoint paradox. It's a scary, scary thing that a speedster has so much power to the point that he ran, time traveled, changed his timeline, and didn't even realize he did it initially when he was just waking up at his work desk. It's a wild thing, and it's kind of in the same category when you think of men should not have the power of a god. And it's definitely a kind of a constant that we see with people like the Flash or these other metahumans that have insane abilities and actually utilize them for kind of bad things. I mean, now, we all know the Flash is a good person. Don't get me wrong, Barry Allen is a good person. But at the same time, he does have the ability to go back in time and save people that he loves. So, I don't know about you, but if I had the powers that he did and something as tragic as, well, his mother dying like to him happened to me, I don't know if I can tell you for 100% certainty that I wouldn't run back in time, that I wouldn't save my mother, right? Even if I knew for sure that it would destroy the timeline, lead to calamity. I mean, we are selfish beings, and a lot of us are extremely selfish. Well, excuse me, really all of us are extremely selfish. That's just who we are as humans and as a general rule of thumb. And even though Barry is a hero, he's shown to be selfless, shown to be willing to sacrifice himself. He still has grief. He still has torture or mental torture and sadness within himself. So that's why it did lead him down this path. But what's really kind of sketchy and a little bit scary is that Barry didn't even necessarily know that he did this himself, that he made this. He really did think Thawne did it. And it was kind of Thawne at the end of the day mocking him, telling him that this calamity, all of the destruction, is a beautiful thing as long as he gets to see Barry die with it, and knowing that it is all his fault. That is how sick and demented that guy is, making a beautiful villain. I'm not gonna lie to you. Professor Zoom or Eobard or Reverse Flash, whatever you want to call him, is a fantastic villain. And I will definitely be making a video about the Reverse Flash or Professor Zoom in a very, very soon manner. I'm sure I'll be doing it in the next couple weeks, but I would love to make a video on that because he is a great villain and a very scary one. Very scary one. Now, this would lead to the end of this movie, and this would obviously happen in a way of Batman or Thomas Wayne putting a bullet in the head of Professor Zoom, making it so only one speedster is on the planet, or at least one speedster is utilizing the Speed Force, giving Barry enough power to run through time to change reality once again. Now, this is a wild thing because, let's be honest, Barry would have never killed Dawn. It would had to have been someone else, and it luckily enough was Thomas Wayne or Thomas Wayne's Batman. He was willing to kill somebody, which he's already been willing to do, but you get what I'm saying. He was willing to kill the speedster so that Barry didn't have to, and also wanting it to himself to be erased so badly so that his son could live, and he was okay with it. He was okay with his own life being taken away, his reality being tarnished or evaporated and incinerated into nothingness, and he's completely fine with it. He's happy with it. He believed that the war that was going on his planet was not worth fighting for, but the war that would fix everything, that would completely and utterly extinguish the fire that was this reality, well, he was willing to fight for that. And also, he was willing to fight for his son, Bruce Wayne. Because when Barry would get back, he would speak to Bruce about remembering the past from the other world, remembering his birthdays with his mother, remembering the time he spent with her. Every last memory, he remembers it all. And Bruce references it as it probably was a gift. That maybe in this line of work, sometimes you do get a gift. And this is when Barry agrees, giving a letter to Bruce. Batman would then take off his mask, truly reading the letter from his father as Bruce Wayne, crying and even calling Barry one hell of a messenger. And this is where the movie would end. It's a beautiful movie, and there's a lot of things that I skipped out on because there's some scenes and also quite a few basically intervals where we're seeing Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and stuff like that. I want to hold off on talking about those things for a future video because I want to talk about this Wonder Woman because this Wonder Woman is pretty damn wild. But I want to talk about them later, just not in this video. I'll definitely talk about it in a later video. But there's a couple things I want to say before I peace out and I leave y'all with the end of the video. I want to say that I absolutely loved this movie. Loved it. Maybe some of you don't believe it's a masterpiece, but I truly believe it was a masterpiece. This movie really opened my eyes to how much a Batman that is Thomas Wayne is willing to sacrifice for his own son, and just flat out what a father would sacrifice to make sure that his son was okay living and could live life, even if it meant that he had to sacrifice his own. On top of that, I loved the way that they introduced and showed different visions of the past and also different kind of origins that we weren't able to see during this movie. The movie's only allotted a certain amount of time, so we never were going to see a Thomas Wayne origin backstory to a large extent. We weren't going to see how Cyborg became Cyborg, how Cyborg became the version he is, how Wonder Woman became the version she was, and so on. We saw little tidbits of everything coming from Barry, seemingly his mind smashing and crashing, kind of with the reality, because he does remember everything from his own past reality. And I feel like that was such a beautiful and amazing way of actually doing these things. And I think that allowed me to really enjoy and also want more, or want for more of the movie. Like, I really loved kind of how they, in a way, was adding small little cliffhangers, like teasing you with certain ideas and showing you this and showing you that, but not giving you the full and like the full uncensored content, in a way, not giving you every last tidbit of it, because we didn't need every last tidbit. We didn't need to know exactly what happened to Martha Wayne. We didn't need to know exactly what happened to the other villains of Batman, or what happened of Barry's life and stuff like that. All we need to know now is that Thomas Wayne, was willing to sacrifice himself or sacrifice his world so that his son could live, and also that Barry is able to keep the happy memories that he could have had with his mother, or did have with his mother, in a different life. Because when he woke up, he didn't remember any of it. He didn't remember having all of those moments. He didn't relive all of those moments, but he was able to keep those memories as a gift once he reset the timeline. It's honestly a beautiful way of doing it, and honestly is a beautiful way of setting up the Flashpoint paradox. I actually really like the idea that we didn't see Barry straight up run back in time. We didn't already know that it was his fault from the very beginning that this world was like this. All we knew was what Barry knew, and that was waking up at a desk and being very, very confused about why people began to kind of think certain things or not know who the Flash was, and so on. It was definitely an amazing thing, an amazing movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. Now, with that said, I would love to hear what you guys have to think or have to say about Justice League, the Flashpoint paradox. I believe it's a masterpiece, but maybe you guys think it's not. Maybe you think it sucks. Maybe you think that it could have been better here, there, anywhere, whatever. I would love to hear it in the comment section below. As always, I am a comic casual, so I would love to hear your guys' opinions on the movie, where you think it could have been better, or what your favorite moment in the movie was. And yeah, that's really all I got to say. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but I hope y'all enjoyed the little bit of a longer video of me ranting about the movie. Now, like I said, hope y'all enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube believes that you'll enjoy this one, so you might as well go check it out now, right? Why not?